And the answer is really in this. Although the numbers of humans are growing, they're kind of different people out there now. They're not so interested in catching all the crayfish and logging and that sort of thing. They're more interested in conservation. So there's a few wealthy people. The land values have gone right up. But this new lot of immigrants coming in are probably not going to be so hard on the land. But they are dividing up sections and putting in roads. But there's no large animals except for pigs. So there's none of those deer or goats or any of those animals. There's no of the ferrets and stoats and weasels are all missing. There's no opossums. There's no hedgehogs. The rats is a different blend than we normally see. There's normally Norway rats and ship rats on the mainland, but we've got Kiori and ship rats. This is quite often the case. Often you get 2 rats, but you don't get a 3rd one. We do have cats, so we've got wild cats to deal with on our property. And there's domestic cats. There's only rabbits, and then there's a few domestic animals around cattle and sheep and dogs, but not many. So why is it like that? Well, it's this distance again. So this is 15 kilometres from here to my place on Great Barrier, and that's too far for an animal to swim. And even the boats going backwards and forwards, it's not as frequent as it would be in Waiheke and places like that. So there's some chance they can control that traffic in the future. They're certainly trying to control introduction of pests with the trading boats. But recently they did bring in another skink, a plague skink came in on the trading boat with wood or something like that. So I'll go on now to talk about some of the special things that are out there because of that difference, because of the lack of stoats and weasels mainly. So one's chevron skink. This is only found on Great Barrier Island and Little Barrier Island, but it's New Zealand's biggest skink, grows about 30 centimetres long. And we see these quite regularly on my property. I'm going to play, I'll try another video clip if it doesn't work, if it's too long, I'll cut it. But this is Department of Conservation.
The chevron skink is New Zealand's longest lizard, reaching up to 30 centimetres. Yet despite its size, its survival and very existence remained a mystery for much of the last century. So how do you protect an animal that's so tricky to find? Let's find out more about this elusive and striking skink.
They were first sort of formally described in 1906, and then for the next 60 odd years they were thought to not exist anymore, that they were extinct. And part of that was because the specimen that it was described from was mislabelled, so everyone was looking in the wrong place. So this is it. This is chevron country.
Right, and here by the creek.
This is exactly what they like.
Right.
A little bit of dappled sunlight, bit of debris in the dam, just a debris dam made from, you know, bits of leaves, twigs and things that have fallen down off branches and collected in the sides of streams. Ideal habitat.
And be tricky to find, I imagine.
Really hard to find. They look exactly, chevron skinks look exactly like a dead piece of tree fern leaf. Oh. Oh. Yep. Yep. Oh.
Okay.
Okay. This guy's quite small. He's not very big. He's what we would call a sub-adult, like a teenager.
Yep.
He's probably 4 or 5 years old. You can see the markings he's got. They look just like the dead tree fern. This guy's lost his tail.
Yep.
You can see where it's just starting to regrow. He probably lost that last summer. And it does grow quite slowly, but eventually it will grow right back. When they've got full tails, the tails are about 1.5 times the size of their body length. So they're very long and whip-like.
And they're the longest lizard in the country.
They are New Zealand's longest lizard. Yeah, they are great. They grow up to 30 centimetres, or even a little bit longer than 30 centimetres, and then that's the length of my arm, my forearm. And they can be well over 30 grams or up to 50 grams if they're pregnant or gravid. Okay, so we better take some measurements of this little guy, see whether we've caught him before. So I'll get you to hold him, Nikki.
Yep.
The first thing we'll do is we'll take a photo. So we'll take that photo ID of the markings on his chin.
And does it take you long going through the photos to work out whether this is Bob or Gary or Josephine?
Not at all. The markings are very specific. We need to measure him.
Measure him, right?
Measure from his nose to
the nose to vent
vent.
length, snout to vent length.
Snout to vent, otherwise known as SVL. 8.3, 83 millimetres. You take his weight.
Yep.
So this measures 13.5 grams. And that's all that we need to do. Perfect. Next, we just let him go.
Halima really does have her work cut out for her on Great Barrier Island, trying to look for an animal that makes itself so hard to find. But for the ones we can find, the more we can learn about their quirky survival tactics, the more we can do to protect them.
In any ocean, so feel free.
Another thing you find out there is banded rail. You do get these up the east coast here a little bit, but they're not that common. Out on Great Barrier Island, they're very common. You see them around the coffee shops, and they've been increasing in numbers over the years as well, so they've arrived at my property and they never were in there before. Paiteki, which you've probably seen around here, out at Rotakari. On Great Barrier Island, they survive outside fenced areas, so this is able to survive because of the lack of stoats. Taiko, we've been talking about this morning. We're hoping that these are on my property. We've found burrows that look like they might be taiko, but we've slept out at night, hoping we'll hear them come in, but as yet we haven't. They are on an adjoining property to my place. Kaka suffer from stoats, so they nest in long burrows in the tree or long hollows in the tree, so a stoat can corner an adult, but with no stoats out on Great Barrier Island, these breed on my place as well. It's the same population as they have on Coromandel and Little Barrier. They move around. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the dawning of the conservation out there. When I first arrived, there was no real discussion about conservation. I was sort of alone. I had a lone interest in it. Most people were more interested in growing vegetables or catching fish. But slowly over the years, that's changed as people have realised that it's a very important place in terms of the possibilities for the future of conservation, being such a large island and having so few invasive species. So one of the early people that started doing some conservation stuff was this guy, Tony. He set up a trust in the north of the island by Port Fitzroy. This is the property he bought. He was a yachtsman actually in Auckland and a sail maker, so he had a bit of money and he bought this property at Port Fitzroy called Fitzroy House. See a dolphin in the front here. And he eventually got some lotto funding to put across a peninsula fence. That's the only fenced area on the island. And it doesn't project into the water, so they still have issues with rats swimming around it and do a constant program of rat and cat control. Across here, on the other side of the fence, is the area which is pest-free. The island in the background is Kaikoura Island, which DOC own. But I should say this, I produced this presentation some time ago, and there's been some changes recently. That may be an iwi island now, I'm not quite sure. So this is the timeline. 1993, Glenfern was bought by Tony. He fenced it off in 2008. In 2009, they made it pest-free, so they got rid of all the pests on the other side of that fence, apart from the ones that swam around. And then in 2006 or 2011, Tony actually died prematurely, and the government stepped in and bought Glenfern. Luckily, it was looked like it was going to go to foreign investors, and then they made it a regional park. So this is now owned by us. Another important person on the island is this lady. There was an area quite close to my place called Windy Hill. It's 1,000 hectares with 16 landowners, and over the years it's kind of morphed into this big trust run by Judy, who has actually got a Queen's Service Medal for killing rats. So this is Windy Hill, this area here, and my property's over here. So this is 1,000 hectares. The area we're working in is less than 100 hectares, so this is quite a big deal. So they started up in 1999, so it's quite early as well. They've got 9 full-time staff now, so Judy spends her time, she's a volunteer, she takes no money out of the system. She spends all her time raising money to keep the thing going. They have a lot of volunteer hours as well, so that's the same way as we run our thing. We've got some people working that are paid, and a lot of volunteers come and help me. 18 landowners. I think some of them have opted out of some parts of the system, so some are using poison on some of the land and some aren't poison. And so far they've recorded 62,000 rats they've killed. This is a bit of a new thing. This is starting the north of the island, so the cat and rat-free Aotea. So I haven't quite been able to work out exactly what's going on at the moment, but DOC had about 60% of the island, and there's been some land's been transferred to iwi, and this is an iwi group that have got funding to start a really big program out there. So we're waiting to see. This could turn into something really big. We're just waiting. They need these sort of numbers. So this is 30 people. I think DOC's got less than 10, so this is a big, major thing. So they have a plan which they've started. They've started off some offshore islands, which are iwi owned, and then they're moving from the very tip of Great Bay Island, kind of like a wave, and they're going to first of all try to remove all the cats and then the rats. They're not going to move on to another area until the area before is rat or cat free, whichever. So it's quite new. A couple of things though, that they don't want to remove the pigs. The pigs are slightly contentious because they can spread kauri dieback, and also things like the burrowing birds, we need to get the pigs off. On Waiheke Island there was a similar start-up. They were going to keep the pigs in some areas, and eventually everybody came along with it and they removed the pigs. So these things always happen. It slowly morphs from one thing to another. So, and this could have even changed now. This was just the situation a couple of years ago when I was ferreting around. So DOC have got a couple of islands as well. They've got Rakatu Island, which is 5 or 3 kilometres off the east coast, and Kaikoura Island. So they made Rakatu Island pest-free about 5 years ago. So DOC at the moment are running 60% of the island. So that's another very significant thing about the island. It's not so much private ownership. So it's possible to do these big projects over there. Oh, that's the islands again. So Kaikoura Island is only 50 metres offshore. So there's a very narrow gap called the Man of War Passage, which rats could swim across. So I think that's probably why DOC's not moved into making that rat pest-free. But they have done Rakatu, and they're starting to transfer birds out there now. Something else is the QE2 ownership there. There's quite a lot of QE2. I don't know whether everybody knows about QE2. It's a way of protecting your land from future development. So there's quite a bit of that. There's 22 hectares right close to us in the next bay. And some of the land in our bay is starting to probably go into trust shortly as well. So there's a lot going on the island. There's also quite a few community groups I haven't mentioned. And there's this Ecology Vision, who are running a conference out there next week, and that's why we're going out. They're the kind of coordinating body and attempting to sort of get everybody to get a constant vision. The issue out there is really to get everybody moving in one way. Some people just want to have a nice little lifestyle and catch a few fish, and other people want to turn it into a big eco-resort. So you've got to get all those people with different views working together. And that's what Ecovision is attempting to do. This is off their website, and they say coming together as a beginning. So they're trying to get that coordinated approach and to get people to come together at conferences and meetings and then work in one direction. It's already starting to happen, of course. So now I'm going to move on to our project.